Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with coverage from round 6 of the 2017 Tata Steel Tournament played on Friday the 20th of January. 7 games in the Masters group, we had 5 draws and 2 decided games, and I will show you the game between Anish Giri with white and Giri-Nepomniachtchi with black. Let's get into it. Giri opened e4 and we have a Sicilian with c5. Knight f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, and Nepomniachtchi plays the Najdorf a7, a6. We've seen this in earlier rounds. Karjakin played a2, a3 here in the first round, and then Magnus Carlsen copied him in the second round. Giri decides to play another pawn move, g2, g3. e7, e5 is the standard reply, kicking the knight, and the knight goes to e2. Bishop e7, bishop g2, and knight bd7. Giri said afterwards that Nepomniachtchi has a habit of this move in many systems. What he meant was developing the knight to d7 before getting the bishop on c8 out. And in this system that bishop would go to e6. So other moves here are bishop e6, castling, and h7, h5. Those are the main moves in this position. Giri played a4, and that's really geared towards the move b7, b5. That move is now not possible because white takes the pawn, and if you take back, your rook on a8 is undefended. So b6 instead, and knight d5. Knight takes d5 is forced because the threat here is that white plays knight e to c3 and then gets more control over the d5 square. So knight takes d5 from black, queen takes d5, and rook b8. That rook was hanging there in the corner. Knight c3, and both players castled. Bishop b7, hitting the queen, and queen d1. Giri gave it as an alternative queen d2, with the idea of rook c8, and then you can play b2, b3, and the bishop can then go to a3. In the game it was not possible because Nepomniachtchi played rook c8 here, and now you cannot play b2, b3 to develop your bishop that way because the knight on c3 is hanging. So rook e1 instead, and here Nepomniachtchi played the standard move h6. Standard according to Giri, but the idea behind that move is that black wants to go to f6 with his knight without white being able to play bishop g5, because white then wants to take on f6, take that knight, and that would be a way to get rid of a defender of the important d5 square. Giri played bishop h3, also a standard move in this system, and now Nepomniachtchi blundered, a blunder on move 16. We'll look at the blunder in a minute. What he should have played here is something like bishop c6, and then Giri gave the variation knight d5, bishop takes, queen takes, rook takes c2, queen d3, and rook c7. You cannot play queen c7 here, which you would like to do, because then there is bishop takes d7, and you cannot take back because the rook on c2 is hanging. So rook c7 and then queen takes a6, and Giri called this a tremendous position for white. But Nepomniachtchi did not play bishop c6, which was the best move in the position. He played rook c6. And why is that a blunder? Well, if you don't see it, that's not a big problem, because Nepomniachtchi, with a rating of 2767, didn't see it either. What he missed was the shot bishop takes h6. And what is that? Are we giving away our bishop? Yes, we are giving away our bishop. Nepomniachtchi took it. Of course, he had seen in the meantime what he had done to himself, but it was too late. Taking on h6 was the best move, and then with queen g4 check and a simple double attack. It's check, and the knight on d7 is attacked twice and only defended once, so white will win his piece back this way. Bishop g5, queen takes, bishop takes, hitting the rook, rook c7, and the bishop went back to f5. And white has won a pawn. Bishop d2, forking two pieces, rook ed1, bishop takes, b takes, messing up white's pawn structure on the queen side, and rook d8 protecting the d6 pawn. Here Giri said that black is very lucky that after blundering the pawn he gets a drawish endgame, and if he's able to trade the bishops, then this could easily end up in a 4 against 3 pawn rook endgame with the pawns on the king side, because all queenside pawns for both white and black are weak. So here Giri was slightly upset that even though black blundered a pawn just like that, he might still have a drawn endgame. And Giri is known for playing many draws, and he was really aching for the full point. Giri played rook ab1, hitting the b6 pawn, and rook c6. Black's plan is to play bishop c8, swap the bishops, and then he has drawing chances in that rook endgame. But Giri found a nice idea. f4, e takes f4, and e5. Giri even called this a brilliant idea, and he said it was unusual that this type of move, this type of motive is possible in the endgame with a pawn push like that. Bishop c8, it's a natural move, and if white now swaps the bishops, it's too little, according to Giri. That rook endgame is drawish. What Nepomniachtchi after the game gave as another option is, instead of bishop c8, is f takes g3. And then Giri gave the following variation: bishop e4, g takes h2 check, king takes, and now d5 is not good because of bishop takes d5, and black has to give up material. The rook is hanging, and if the rook plays, then there is a bishop takes f7 check, a discovered attack on the other rook. So d5 is not good. Rook c7 has to be played, and then e takes d6, rook c d7, bishop takes, rook takes, and c4. This is very good for white with his passed pawns. Just to continue the variation, rook c8, but then there is c5, and the point is that you cannot take on c5 because then there is d6, d7, and the pawn goes through, or black has to give his rook for that pawn. So f takes g3 did not work according to Giri, and after the move that was played, bishop c8, he played bishop e4. Nepomniachtchi took on c3, rook takes d6, rook takes, and pawn takes. Material is even now, but that d pawn is very dangerous. Rook c4, bishop d3, rook c6, rook d1, and here a good defense according to Giri for black would have been bishop d7. Then white can take that pawn on a6 and is a pawn up, but this is difficult to crack. Black has drawing chances here. F takes g3 was a suggestion from Nepomniachtchi during the post-mortem of the game, but it doesn't work. It's a nice variation, I'll give it here. Bishop takes a6. If you take that bishop, there's d6, d7, and the pawn goes through. If you take on h2, then it's very important that white plays king h1 here. And why that is important, well, I'll show you that by playing king takes h2, because then there is bishop d7, and that looks to fail to bishop b5, but now there is rook takes c2 check, and with that king on h1 this would not be check, so then white just takes the bishop on d7. Nepomniachtchi played king f8. Giri said afterwards that he saw from Nepomniachtchi's body language that he wasn't deep enough in the position and hadn't seen the trick that Giri now plays and that decides the game straight away. King f8 was played after 24 seconds. What Nepomniachtchi hadn't seen is the shot bishop takes a6. It's quite funny, he missed two moves in this game, Nepomniachtchi. One was bishop takes h6, costing him a pawn, and the second one is bishop takes a6, costing him a pawn. And why is this so strong? If you take that bishop, then the pawn goes through d6, d7, and you cannot do anything against promotion. And if you instead play bishop d7, then there is bishop b5, attacking the rook, and the rook cannot protect the bishop. If instead you take on c2, then there is d7, very strong move, and you lose your bishop. You have to give up your bishop for the pawn, and after bishop takes, rook takes, this is an easily winning position. Nepomniachtchi saw all this. He took on g3, which was his last move of the game, because after h takes g3, he thought for a few minutes and then resigned. And since November, Giri had not tasted the sweet taste of victory. And finally, he won a game. Giri also had some advice for us chess players. He said that if your opponent makes a mistake, like Nepomniachtchi did here by missing the bishop takes h6 move, he said, well, you have to keep the pressure on them because they will feel bad anyway, and it very often happens that after one mistake, another mistake will come. So if your opponent makes a mistake, keep him or her under pressure, and there's a very good chance that you'll win the game. The results of the sixth round, as I said, 5 draws and 2 decided games. Giri won, and Wei Yi beat Richard Rapport with black in a crazy game where Rapport sacrificed half his army, and Wei Yi's king seemed in a lot of trouble in the middle of the board, but in the end he found an accurate defense, and then he was just too much material up. The standings after round 6, Wesley So is still leading the pack with 4.5 out of 6, followed by Alyanov and Carlsen, and you can see the rest of the field there. The 7th round will be played on Saturday, January 21st, and I will do a highlights video after the round. Hope you enjoyed this video of round 6. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to my channel, and I'm looking forward to seeing your comments. This is Rick from Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.